You're listening to old Western stories, where dust settles slow, guns speak loud, and every tale rides straight into your imagination. Hit that subscribe and saddle up, the ride's just startin'. That wagon wasn't built for blizzard travel, and sure as hell not for what hit them on the ridge that night. Wind came down screamin', like the devil had lost something and wanted it back. Snow slammed sideways, not soft or gentle but fast and bitter, hitting hard like grit from a kicked-up trail. Hester Quinn held her baby close under two blankets and a soaked wool coat, but the cold kept comin'. Her boots had gone stiff from frozen creek water, and her fingers barely gripped the reins before the mule panicked and snapped the traces. One good tug and it was gone, dragging leather and fear straight into the white. She didn't scream after it, didn't have the strength, just turned back to the wagon where the axle had snapped clean and one wheel spun lazy like it didn't know the world had quit. She stepped off the trail, legs sinking near to her knees. Wood groaned behind her. The baby whimpered. Hester dropped to one knee, holding the child to her chest, breath shallow, each draw feeling thinner than the last. Her name was Evelyn, just 7 weeks old. Still smelled like milk and soap and skin not yet touched by the world. Hester leaned back against the wheel, blinking, slow, trying to find the moon through the white. Nothing but shadows moving through shadows. Her mouth was too dry to pray. Cold had already claimed her fingers and lips. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just whispered to Evelyn soft as she could, "I'm sorry, baby girl, I'm real sorry." Then the dark came in. Bootsteps broke through the snow an hour later. No lantern, no calling out, just steady crunching under worn soles and the brush of buffalo hide coat against drifted pine. The man moved like he knew where the dead things lay buried. He found her slumped against the wagon, arms wrapped around the baby like a broken scarecrow. Took a knee, felt for a pulse. Weak, but there. Baby was warm still, fussy but alive. He looked at the storm, then at the woman. Didn't say a word. Just scooped both up in them arms and turned uphill into the wind like it weren't even there. The lined shack stood half-collapsed and forgotten, leaning against a split rock outcropping near Sulphur Ridge. Most folks didn't know it was there. Hell, most wouldn't have cared. Roof sagged, door hung half off. Snow packed hard against the north wall, but inside sat a stove, rusted but sturdy, and a table made from old rail planks. That's where he laid her, gently like setting down something that used to matter. The baby got wrapped in a saddle blanket and tucked close. The man worked fast, peeled off wet layers, packed a firebox with old pine scrap and paper stripped from the ledger nailed to the wall. Stove groaned once, then caught. The smell of sap and smoke pushed back the cold. Hester came to with the sound of fire snapping and something boiling on a hot plate. Her mouth felt like cotton packed with iron. Took her a second to realize she wasn't dead. Third second, she realized her baby was still breathing. Fourth, that someone was watching. She sat up too fast. "Where?" she croaked. "Lined shack," the man said, voice low and scratchy like boots on gravel. "You were froze near to dying." She squinted at him. Big fella, pale eyes, thick beard. Buffalo hide coat stitched with mismatched patches, army blue, trader gray. Couldn't tell his age, only that he'd seen more than one bad winter. "You bring me here," he nodded once. "You and the girl. Didn't think you'd make it. What's your name?" He turned back to the fire, tossed in another split of pine. "Boone," she blinked. "Boone?" He didn't look at her. "I've heard that name. Most folks have, one way or another." She sat real still. "They say you killed a man in Red Bluff, shot him in the back outside the stable." Boone didn't move. "That's one story. They say you disappeared after the war, went crazy, started living like a ghost. They say a lot of things." The fire popped. Baby Evelyn stirred, fussing. Hester pulled her close, feeling the weight and warmth and life of her. "You got food?" Boone stood, crossed the shack, opened a crate. Tossed her a strip of jerky. Elk, smoked last fall, eat slow. She chewed it stiff, teeth hurtin', but it was food, real food. You alone out here. Boone poured a tin cup with hot water steeped in spruce needles, handed it to her. Smelled like sap and dirt, but it was warm. I like quiet, he said. You saved me. He gave a grunt. Saved the baby you just came with. She watched him, moving slow but sure, no wasted motion. Like someone who'd had to survive without a safety net for too long. Outside, wolves howled, long and close. They've been following, Boone muttered, since I dragged you off that trail. They smell blood. They smell weakness. He checked the rifles stacked by the door. Fire keeps 'em back for now. What about when it dies? He didn't answer, just walked to the door and bolted it with an old iron bar. Wind rattled the wood. You ain't what I expected, she said. He looked at her real direct. What you expect? Either a preacher or a devil, nothing in between, Boone snorted. Preachers freeze just like the rest. You gonna leave when the storm breaks? Maybe. You runnin' from something? Not anymore. That sat heavy between them. The baby made a soft grunt. Boone walked over, crouched down, checked her face. She's strong, he said. She'll need to be. She got a name. Evelyn. Good name, better than mine. Why you out here, Boone? He looked at her a long time. Firelight flickered off his pale eyes. Sometimes it's better to be forgotten than forgiven. Outside, snow slid off the roof in a heavy chunk. Wolves didn't howl this time, just paced. You could feel 'em out there. Waitin'. You believe in ghosts? She asked. I've seen worse. He moved back to the fire, sat down cross-legged, and began cleaning a revolver with calm, practiced strokes. You sleep, he said. Storms break in. Tomorrow's when it gets bad. I thought tonight was bad. Nah, he said. Tonight's just the breath before the bite. The fire held through the night, burning low but steady, throwing off enough heat to keep frost from creeping back in. By morning, the wind had quieted some, but the air still bit sharp when it came through the cracks in the wall. Hester stirred first, blinking slow in the amber glow. Her back ached, neck too, but she was warm, alive. The baby was curled tight beside her, sleeping, with a belly full and her cheeks flushed with color that hadn't been there the day before. The smell of pine smoke, sweat, and boiled meat filled the room. She shifted to sit up. Blanket slipped off her shoulder. Boone was already by the stove, working a knife through a strip of dried elk. You don't sleep? She asked, voice rough from dry air. He didn't look her way. Enough. That mean no. Means I sleep when I ain't listening for teeth scratching the door. She looked toward the entry. The bolt still held. Light was dim, but you could tell the storm had eased. Still snowing, but slower now. A quiet kind of snow, like it was laying down instead of coming at you. How long you think we'll be stuck? Boone sliced the meat in half. Couple days, maybe. Depends on whether the sun shows its face. You always talk like this. Like what? Like you're waiting for something worse. He gave a dry grunt. Because I usually am. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her and reached for the baby. Evelyn nuzzled close, breathing quiet, arms twitching in sleep. She'd have died out there, Hester said low. Boone didn't answer. Just leaned his back against the wall and chewed slow. His eyes were on the stove, but his thoughts were somewhere further. You ever lose someone? She asked. His jaw stopped moving. Then he swallowed and shifted his stance. Everyone has. Out here, Lawson's the rule. She studied him a moment. But not everyone walks into a blizzard for strangers. Didn't feel like a choice. Then what'd it feel like? Boone rubbed the edge of his thumb across a patch stitched into his coat. Like I owed a debt, one that don't ever get settled. Hester didn't press. Didn't seem like he was the kind to say things twice. The silence settled thick, not empty silence. Just the kind that comes when two folks know there ain't much use in filling it. Crackle from the fire. A coyote yipping far off. Then something heavier. A low growl, not close but not far enough neither. Boone turned his head toward it. Didn't blink. "They're testing us," he muttered. "Wolves. And maybe worse." "What else would be out there?" Boone didn't answer. He walked to the corner, picked up one of the rifles, checked the chamber, then leaned it near the stove. "There's things the cold don't kill, just slows down. You talk like you've seen 'em. I've seen enough." She sat quiet, watching him. He didn't scare easy, but there was something under his voice now. A tension that hadn't been there the night before. "You said you were a scout," she offered. He nodded once. "Years back. With the army. Used to wear the blue before they stopped wearing me." "What happened?" Boone's eyes didn't move from the window. "Winter campaign out past Snake Ridge. Got caught in an ambush. Fog was so thick we shot our own. I got separated, holed up in a cave 3 days before they found me." "You were the only one. Out of 32. That landed heavy. "And the army just let you go?" she asked. "Didn't feel like I belonged after that." He turned, real slow, and looked at her with them pale eyes. "They said I wasn't right in the head no more. Said I kept talking about things that weren't there." "Were you?" "Don't remember." His voice was flat, honest. "But I do remember they didn't come back with me." A long breath hung in the shack. Hester pulled Evelyn close, kissing her forehead. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Boone crossed to the stove, crouched low, poked the coals with a length of iron. "We stay put today," he said. "Don't go near the edge of the trees. You think they're watching." "I know they are." The fire popped. Sap from green wood hissing loud in the stillness. Hester reached for her boots, found them near the door, stiff but thawed. She worked them on slow while Boone stood listening. "You always this guarded?" she asked. "You always this curious?" he shot back. She gave a faint smile. "Only when I'm stuck in a shack with a man whose name folks whisper like it's a warning." Boone glanced at her, then out the window again. "You ought to listen to 'em. If you meant harm, I'd be gone already. Not all harm's fast." That stopped her. Boone let it hang, then turned and walked to the door, listening close. Snow had slowed to a drifting hush. But there was a sound underneath it, breaths, low and ragged, from the woods. "Back," Boone said, motioning with his chin. "Now." Hester clutched the baby and stepped away. Boone pulled the bolt, opened the door an inch. Air knifed in, sharp, clean. "And wrong." He looked through the crack, then shut it fast, bolted it tight. "They're closer," he said. "How many?" "Too many." "Can we fight 'em off?" Boone looked at her, not with fear, but with a cold sort of acceptance. "For a while." Hester backed toward the far wall, heart pounding. "I thought you said the fire would keep 'em back." "Fire keeps animals back. This might not be animals." "You mean people." "Might have been once." The way he said it turned her gut cold. "I need to know what we're facing, Boone." "You ever heard of the Graybacks?" She shook her head. "Old scout legend," he said. "Men who turned on their own in a siege, ate what they could, lived through the snow. They say winter don't let go of some men. It gets inside 'em, makes something else." "That's just stories." "So was I." The fire dimmed a touch. Boone moved to feed it again, but stopped halfway, rifle in hand. Footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, not on 4 legs, then another and another. Hester clutched Evelyn to her chest, eyes wide. "They know we're here," Boone said low. "How close?" "They're testing the walls." "You said the shack was safe." "I said it'd do for now." "And after now?" Boone's hand gripped the rifle tighter. "Then we hold as long as we can, and if we can't," he looked at her, jaw tight, "you give me the baby, I'll get her out. You won't leave me. I ain't asking permission. I'm not jivin' her up." He didn't argue. Just turned back to the door, shoulders squaring slow. The storm had eased, but the real threat was just now arriving. The first knock came just past dusk, soft and slow, like fingertips dragged across old wood. Hester was rocking Evelyn against her shoulder, heart beating faster than the baby's breath. Boone was sitting, cross-legged near the stove, rifle laid across his thighs, eyes locked on the door like he could see through it. The second knock wasn't gentle. It thudded low and deliberate like knuckles dipped in iron. "They're testin'," Boone said, barely above a whisper, "tryin' to see if we're tired yet. I thought they didn't come close while fire burned. They ain't wolves no more." Hester stood slow, baby tucked close. She moved to the wall where the kindlin box sat, dropped 2 more pieces on the coals. Sap hissed, caught flame. The shadows on the walls twisted like dancers at a hangin'. Outside, snow cracked under a heavy step. Then another. Scrape of nails on the side wall, just below the window slit Boone had stuffed with burlap. The kind of sound that made your back itch and your stomach twist. Boone stood, eased the rifle to his shoulder, moved to the corner where the window gave just enough line to cover the trees. "If you see one standin' up," Hester asked, voice low, "what do you do?" "I shoot. Even if it used to be a man. It ain't anymore." He turned his head just enough to catch her eye. "You understand that, don't you?" She nodded. "I buried a husband last spring who weren't the same man I married. I understand." Another knock, harder this time, right at the edge of the doorframe. Boone aimed, didn't fire, waited. Then it came into view just for a breath. A shape leaning around the window slit. Face wrapped in snow-caked fur, eyes sunk deep and too wide. Skin gray like ash, nose half gone, mouth open like it'd forgot how to close. It didn't growl, didn't speak, just watched. Boone's shot broke the quiet like a boot through stained glass. The shape snapped back. A howl rose, long and low, then 3 more echoed it from the tree line. Wolves scattered from the edge, their yips sharp and panicked. Something big thrashed in the brush, crashing through low pine. Hester ran to the door, grabbed the second rifle from its hooks. She tossed it to Boone without a word. He caught it, cracked it open, checked the chamber. "That one saw inside," he muttered. "Saw us both. What's that mean?" "Means it won't stop now." Hester laid Evelyn in a drawer lined with blankets and moved to the stove. Her hands trembled, but she worked fast, feeding the flame, blocking every gap she could find with rags. Smoke curled near the roof beam, thick with pine pitch and sweat. Outside, the howls quieted. Snow fell again, light and thin, but the pressure in the air shifted, like breath bane held by the trees. "You ever think this place was cursed?" Hester asked, breaking the quiet. Boone kept his eyes forward. "I think the world's been sick a long time. Out here there ain't nothing hidden it. And I've done things," he said, "things you can't walk away from, can't wash off." "Like what?" "I left a man behind in Snake Ridge. He begged me to stay, said he could make it if I waited till night. I didn't wait." "Why not?" "Because I knew he was lying, knew he just didn't want to die alone." He looked at her now, steady and bare. "I didn't either." Hester walked to the drawer, touched Evelyn's hand, then stood tall beside Boone. "You're not alone now. That don't make it easier." "No," she said, "but it makes it matter." The shack creaked. Roof moaned under the weight. Somewhere near the back wall, a low scratching started again, slow and rhythmic like a blade drawing circles. "They're marking us," Boone said. "What for?" "For later." The sound stopped. Dead quiet after. Even the fire seemed to hush itself. Boone backed toward the stove. "They'll pull back tonight, wait for weakness. Cold don't scare 'em, but daylight slows 'em. Then we make it to morning." "No, we survive past morning. Mornin's just the next promise they mean to break." They stayed up through the dark, took turns sittin' by the baby, rifles close. No more knocks, no more steps, but sleep didn't come. Not with that smell in the air, sour and wet like rot frozen and thawed too many times. Hester didn't ask if he'd seen one up close before. She didn't need to. Boone's hands told the story, rough, scarred, one knuckle bent wrong from settin', a break in the field without help. The kind of hands that only killed what they feared. Come dawn, the storm gave up. Snow stopped, sky turned flat and gray, quiet like the world had lost its voice. Boone stepped out first, rifle raised, eyes sharp. Hester waited behind the door, holding Evelyn against her chest. The cold outside didn't bite the same. It clung. Like the woods didn't want to let go of what they'd found. Boone moved to the trees, slow and watchful. Snow crunched under each step. At the edge of the grove he stopped, stared down. Hester watched from the door, heart thumping like a war drum. Boone knelt, reached into the snow, stood again with something in his hand. He walked back, boots dragging heavy, dropped it on the floor. A jawbone, human, stripped clean, still wet, teeth yellowed. A wolf's tooth jammed through the socket like a nail. "They left us a message," Boone said. "What's it mean?" "Means they're thinking now, using what's left of the man to warn what's next. You think they'll come again. They don't leave till they get what they want." "Which is?" Boone looked at her, not at the baby, at her. "Warmth, blood." "Hope." Hester swallowed hard, jaw tight. "They won't take her." Boone crouched by the fire, stocking it back up. "Then we best be ready for the part where they try." The shack held still, but the woods beyond were breathin'. Slow, waitin'. Smell of powder in the air, sweet smoke clingin' to skin and wool. The siege wasn't over. It was only just gettin' patient. By mid-mornin', the fire had turned to coals and the shack smelled of sweat, sap, and slow-burned fear. Hester was on her knees packing snow into a tin bucket near the stove, melting it for the baby's feed. Boone sat by the door, jaw locked tight, rifle across his lap. He hadn't said more than 10 words since laying that jawbone on the floor. Didn't have to, it said plenty on its own. Hester tossed another strip of pine into the fire, watching it hiss. "We can't sit waitin' for the next knock," she said. "Ain't my style," Boone replied. "We hold this place or we run. Ain't no runnin', not with that little one. Snow's knee-deep in the lowlands, they'd have us by the next creek. Then we hold." She stood, wiped her hands on her skirt and moved to the ammo crate. Took out a box of shells and started loading the revolver like she'd done it a dozen times before. Boone gave her a look. "You shoot." "My daddy raised 3 girls and 1 gun. Guess which he trusted most." She snapped the chamber shut. "Ain't my first winter neither." Boone nodded slow. "That's so. Buried my firstborn after a fever near choked him out. My second froze before we made it to Sutter's camp. You think I'm lossin' this one too, you ain't looked close." She turned, set the gun beside the blanket drawer where Evelyn lay sleepin', soft breath puffin' against the wool. Boone stood, pulled on his coat, and motioned to the door. "Come see." She followed him out, rifle slung over one shoulder. The air was cold but not bitter. The kind that promised thaw by dusk but never quite delivered. Sun hung low and useless behind thin clouds. Trees stood quiet. Too quiet. Boone pointed to the tree line low against the slope. "Tracks," he said. "They're gettin' bolder, came within 30 feet. Any more bones?" "No, just this." He held up a strip of torn cloth, gray wool frayed on one edge. Looked like it had once been part of a coat. "You recognize it?" she asked. "Wore one just like it back when I marched under Colonel Hawes." "Yours, might be." "They mockin' you?" Boone's face was stone. "They remember me." She stared at him, slow breath fogging in the air. "You left something out before. Left out plenty. Tell me now." He paused, then spoke, voice low and hollow. "We were sent to burn out a valley. Small pass near Yellowstone. Said it was holdin' deserters, just a dozen of us. Scout unit. But there weren't no soldiers in that pass. Just a clan hidden from the war. Old folks. Kids. We set fire to 3 homes before we knew better. And by then winter came fast. We tried to leave. Couldn't, so we stayed, ate their food, slept in their homes, and when it ran out..." His voice trailed off. Hester finished it for him. "Some kept eatin', and some watched." Boone looked out over the snow, jaw tight. "I walked into that pass as a man, walked out a memory." They stood in silence, the wind nudgin', the trees just enough to sound like whisperin'. Then it shifted, fast, a flicker of motion by the ridge. Boone turned, raised his rifle. Back inside, now. Hester ducked in, grabbed Evelyn, tucked her clothes, and set her behind the stove. Boone slid in behind her, rifle steady at the cracked-open door. "I saw one," he muttered. "Walkin', just one, means they're testin' again." The shape emerged slow from the trees. Gray coat, lean frame, head tilted sideways like the neck wasn't workin' right. It stepped through the snow deliberate, dragging one foot, leather boot shredded open to show skin like wax. Boone didn't fire. "Ain't sure it's breathin'," he whispered, waitin' for it to move wrong. Hester stood to the side, revolver in hand. The shape stopped, looked at the shack, tilted its head again real slow. Then it smiled, lips cracked, teeth too many. Boone fired. First shot took the thing high in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. Second shot caught the neck. That one spun it round and dropped it into the snow. Hester ran to the window slit. "It ain't alone," she said. "Three more behind the ridge." "How close?" "Closer than I like." Boone reloaded fast. Hester moved to the door, laid her revolver on the table, and fed the fire again. Coals flared, wood popped. The smell of smoke punched through the tension. "They comin' fast," she said, "or smart." "Smart's worse," Boone muttered. Outside, another howl broke loose. Not wolf, deeper, like it came from a throat that used to know prayer. Boone grabbed a lantern, lit it fast. "You see one get close, don't wait, shoot." "Won't miss." "Good." Then the knock came, not gentle, 3 thuds hard enough to rattle the bolt. Boone flung the door open, rifle raised, and fired. Nothing stood there, just snow driftin'. Then a shadow peeled from the side of the shack and lunged. Hester screamed. Boone spun, fired once. Missed. The thing was on him, hands gray and crackin', eyes like river ice, jaw slack. Boone shoved the rifle crosswise into its mouth and pushed back. The thing clawed and writhed, snappin'. Hester grabbed the fire iron and struck. Once. Twice. The third hit cracked bone. Boone twisted, shoved the thing back through the door, slammed it shut. Breathin' hard, blood black and thick dripped from the rifle stock. "You hurt?" Hester asked. "Just winded." "That makes 2 of us." They stood chest heaven, fire glow flickerin' like a heartbeat. The baby started cryin' soft. Hester moved to her, held her close, whisperin' soft things. Boone grabbed his coat, walked back outside, snow crunchin' under boots. He came back 10 minutes later, face pale. "What?" she asked. He dropped a stone on the table. On it a mark burned deep, a circle with 3 lines through it. "They left it next to the one I shot." "What's it mean?" "It's a claim." "On what?" Boone looked around the shack at her, at the baby. "On what's still breathin'." The air in the shack tightened. Fire hissed low. Outside, nothing moved, but the trees leaned in close like they'd heard too much to stay quiet. Boone sat near the door again, rifle in lap. "They're regroupin'," he said. "Waitin' till our hands shake." "Then we don't shake," Hester replied. "We shoot." "Damn right we do." And still the shack held its breath, waitin' on the next sound to mean the last. The first crash came just before dawn. A shoulder or skull slammin' into the back wall hard enough to knock a skillet from its hook. Hester spun, rifle up, Boone already movin' toward the sound. Evelyn stirred in her drawer bed but didn't cry. The air was thick with smoke and sweat and gun oil, a stew of fear and resolve. "They're done waitin'," Boone muttered, eyes locked on the wall. Another thud. Then a crack, timber split down the grain just below the beam. "Brace it," he said. Hester grabbed the wood crate and shoved it hard against the break. The wall groaned again, snow siftin' through the new gap like dust spillin' from a wound. "They come through, they'll try the roof next," Boone said, hands already wrappin' wire round a spike to jam it through the bolt lock. Hester moved to the fire, dropped 2 more logs in, heat flarin' bright enough to sting the eyes. She glanced down. The baby was awake, eyes wide, talkin' it all in like she knew this world already came with teeth. Boone grabbed a fresh clip, slammed it into the rifle. "You see the one wearing the coat," he said. "That one's mine. The leader, if there is such a thing, used to be a scout named Marlowe. Lost him in Snake Ridge. Thought he died. Guess he found another way to stay warm." The roof groaned above them. Scratching, slow drag of claws or boots. Then the faint pat-pat of something moving overhead. Hester's breath hitched. "Boone, don't speak, just listen." Another thud. Then a tear, the dry rip of hide common apart. Snow dropped through the ceiling seam. Then fingers, long, gray, dirt under nails. The thing reached down slow, searching for grip. Boone fired. The ceiling splintered, hand vanished. Howl cracked through the treetops like thunder. The shack shook with it. Boone stumbled back, clutching his side. Blood bloomed dark against his coat. "Damn bastard got me with a shard when I fired," he said, knees hitting the floor. Hester dragged him behind the stove, propping him up with the blanket roll. "You hold this," she said, pressing her hand against the wound. "Ain't deep, just angry. You need to go. You stop talking nonsense." "Hester, take the girl. Go out the root cellar. Back ridge leads down to the river. I ain't leaving you. They want warmth, they'll chase her, you got a chance." "We both do." She kissed his forehead, cold and clammy. "You saved me. Now shut up and reload." Boone tried to laugh. Failed. Hester took the rifle from him, grabbed the revolver off the table and stepped toward the door. Another crash at the back wall. Then wood gave way. Snow blasted in. A shape followed, tall, lean, wearing Boone's old gray coat. Half of Marlowe's face was still human. The rest was chewed, twisted. His eyes glowed low, dead but wanton. Hester fired once. Caught him in the gut. He flinched but kept calming. She stepped back, fired again, chest shot. Still he came. Boone tried to stand, blood smearing on the floor. Hester screamed, lifted the fire iron from the coals and swung. It hit Marlowe square in the jaw. Bone cracked. Teeth flew. He dropped to one knee. Boone's rifle cracked. Shot hit home right between the eyes. Marlowe dropped, still. Smoke filled the shack. Roof creaking, more claws scrabbling above. "We ain't done yet," Hester muttered. She grabbed the lantern oil, splashed it near the doorframe, waited for the next shape to appear. Another came, ducking through the break. She lit the match. Flames roared. The thing screamed, not a wolf scream, not human neither, something worse. It fled back out into the snow, body alight. The others scattered with it, faint howls, distant yelps. The fire pushed them back. They didn't like that heat when it came angry. Then came the quiet, not the kind that waits, the kind that stays. Hester stood in the doorway, breathing hard, revolver still hot in her hand. The snow fell gentle again, not soft, just steady. Boone groaned behind her. She rushed back, checking the wound. Still bleeding, but slower now. "We made it," he asked. "They're gone or hurt bad enough to think twice." "You kill him. We both did." "Good." He leaned his head back, breath rattling. "Ain't no one deserved worse than Marlowe." She bandaged him, worked in silence, listening to the woods hold their breath again. But this time not out of fear. Just listening. Evelyn stirred in the drawer. Hester picked her up, held her close. The baby looked around, eyes big, talking in smoke and scars, and the man lying wounded on the floor. "She'll remember," Hester said. "Maybe not the faces, but the feeling, the heat, the sound." Boone smiled, weak. "Then she'll remember Bain loved." They sat there, the three of them, as light crept through the cracks. Daylight, real this time, no tricks. Just the kind that made you squint and believe maybe spring wasn't a lie. The fire burned low. The shack still stood, scarred, marked, but solid. Boone winced. "You think they'll come back?" "Maybe," Hester said. "But we'll be waiting if they do." He chuckled soft. "You ever think I was real back when you first saw me?" "No," she looked at him, eyes soft but sharp. "But I hoped. And now," she kissed his forehead again, "now I believe in ghosts that keep their word." Outside, the trees swayed gentle. Wind carried not screams but bird song, low and cautious, like even nature needed to be sure the worst had passed. Hester stood, rifle in one hand, baby in the other. Boone leaned on her as they looked out into the world that tried to bury them, and didn't. You've been riding with old Western stories. If the tale hit your mark, give it a like, drop a comment about your favorite part, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next trail we ride. Don't forget, hit that subscribe so you're always in the saddle, and you'll always be ready when the next story rides in.